All right, I have a few things to do today to finish buttoning this thing up so I can do some test runs and then call a customer and have him come pick it up. I'm sure he's going to be anxious to get it back, although the temperature's been kind of cool, but the afternoons are warm. All right, I'm getting ready to install the spark plug wire harness holders, and I use R&M Specialties brackets. I use them on my car. I like them. These are warranted for life. I've had blocks go bad. I've called them, tell them I need a 3-hole or a 2-hole or a 1-hole wire holder, and they put them in the mail and I replace them, and it's been very comforting to know that somebody stands behind their product. These happen to be polished. I wish they would polish on both sides, but I can clean this up and make it look a little nicer on that side because it shows a little more on this engine. But the problem that you run into, I'm running, these are Ford racing wires. This is my spare wire. The problem you run into is these holes are not drilled actually large enough. These are just a little over 1/4 of an inch. It's not large enough to put this wire into. And I've called them, and I'm doing what everybody else does. Without buying a 9mm wire, these are like 8s. And the 9s are just a little bit too big, and they're too bulky as far as the bracket has to get changed. So what I do is I take these over and I chuck them up in a vise, and then I drill them out, because you can see, hopefully, how this sort of doesn't fit nice. I mean, it'll squish your wire and maybe cause problems down the road. So I drill them out just under 3/8 of an inch, and then the wire can fit in here, and even if you have to loosen the nut and the bolt that goes through here, you can move the wire and then retighten it. And once they're in, they're in. They look nice, which I'll show you when I get done. So I'm going to go over to the bench. I'll show you how I just do it. Real simple. I'll do one of them, and then I'll go through the rest of them. All right, I have one chucked up in the vise right now. Basically took the bolts out, just put the 2 halves together, and, you know, eyeball flush with the top of the vise. I use 11/32 drill because I know that that'll give me some room, plus it'll keep the wire snug so it won't slide too much. The only thing I suggest is when you get done, like I've already done one already, is just take one bolt and the nut and put it in there just to keep your halves together, just so you know that, hey, I drilled these two, these are paired together, and, you know, just go to the car after that. So it's more of a ease of installation, keeping things together, make your life a little bit easier. To drill this one, and if your bits are sharp, they're going to grab, so be ready for that. And then you're done, and I'm going to need 2 hands here, or a knee. Take the bolt, and I don't care which pile I did it from. And that way I know that those are together, and I kept the 2 halves the same way together. So I'm going to drill the rest of these, and then I'm going to go put the thing together. All right, I have all these drilled right now, and now you can see it fits actually a lot nicer, and by the time this gets pinched down, I'm just pushing this together. It's going to hold the wire intact, and it's not going to pull one way or the other. So I'm ready to put this whole assembly together now and get them on the car. Well, I'm always a glutton for punishment, so I always do the hard side first, which I'll show you in a minute. But basically I wanted to get the quick install. So you basically just take the 2 valve cover keepers off, and then this is going to get set down in here and then bolted back up, and then I'll go through the rest of it as soon as I get my hands free. Sometimes it's, if you know exactly where everything's going to be, you can actually, you know, zip tie the plug wire to it, but there's a lot of room here, so I like to assemble them all at once. The next time you can always take the whole thing off as a unit. So we'll get to it. All right, so I've just installed this one, and basically just use these to tighten them back down, so those are your retainer. They take the place of your retainer. And then the rest of this is the plug wire will get set here, and then you'll use a one hole one, and you'll use a two here to grab these two. Usually I like to keep them inside, so the furthest one back is always on the bottom, and so forth as you go out. And we'll get to that, but I'm going to show you the other side because it's real busy. Because I have all these hoses in the way, basically took the vacuum line off here. These are the brake. I'm going to do something with these. I don't know what yet. So I have number 8 back here, and it's running through the one hole clamp. This is a 2 hole, this is a 3, and this is a 4. So I have number 5, and I've got these all spaced about the same, so they're easy enough to get the spark plugs, get them off the spark plugs without a problem. The nice thing is it keeps them away from the manifold and the heat. And like I said, these blocks are guaranteed for life. I use an Allen wrench. It's 5/32 hex. These are 3/8. And once you get these started, just snug them up past the nylock. Give it a little bit of tension, because you can split this block if you just get really over anxious. All right, here's the passenger side with the spark plug retainer and rail in place. Each plug is all aimed the same way, or plug wires aimed the same way. They're securely mounted. These aren't going to go anywhere, and they're routed up to the distributor as neat as can be. So the next step will be the air cleaner, and then we'll do some tuning. All right, you can see wedged up in there the new clutch quadrant and the adjuster that's coming through the foot box, the front of the foot box, that was installed in place of the stock Ford plastic self-adjusting quadrant that is prone for stripping. So the owner shouldn't have any problems from now on. And although it was tight getting in there, it was harder to take the other one off than it was to put this one on. All right, tight quarters in here for sure doing this kind of work, but I did not drill the hole that I'm going to explain to you in a minute. But the throttle cable, I'm going to pull this up. Well, you can barely see it. Right up here was drilled over 1 inch from the existing hole, which has a little rubber plug in it right now, and that was to eliminate the S-bend in the cable on the outside of the foot box here, which I'll show in a minute, due to the fact that somebody installing a power brake unit and the booster created pressure against the throttle cable, which put a big bend in it, and I didn't like it, so I moved it over. Right below the clutch quadrant, almost straight down now, is the new throttle cable where it comes out, and you can see that it just misses the brake booster right here. And the other hole, which was back this way, the original, put a nice S-bend in the cable, which added a lot of friction. So by moving it over 1 inch, it now comes up, has a nice slight bend, arc, and comes all the way around to the throttle body. And it's a very nice smooth transition. All right, a couple of things that I found while taking this thing apart. The builder had the wrong bolt in here. This is a metric 10mm 1.5 pitch, and they had a 3/8 16 USS bolt kind of just jammed in there, and it was loose. So this is just loose, because I may still have to take the wheel off. I want to clean some stuff up. Then I'll put the other 2 bolts in, which I use a puller to pull it off. Tighten this down, put the center cap back on. And the other thing that I found when I was taking it apart was the gear shift lever. So this person had this gear shift lever like this. Bottom bolt was in. I'm going to set the camera down. The bottom bolt was in here, and
the other hole, this is a new drilled hole, was right here, but it doesn't fit a T5. So what they did was drill another hole and drill through the shift lever on the transmission and put a little stinking 8mm bolt through here with a little nut, and this was actually flopping back and forth right here a little bit, sloppy. So I welded the hole back up, plugged it, welded it, measured the distance, drilled another hole, and now I have 2 bolts that will be correct to go in there, and they'll be tight. And I'll use my thread sealant anti-vibration locker to help keep that tight. And one thing I did add was the toggle switch that controls the fan 100% of the time. Sniper's controlling the fan on and off, but this is a switch that will go straight to ground through the relay and run the fan 100% of the time, just in case there's an issue or you're stuck in traffic and you want to run the fan, or in my case when I'm on track and I want to run the fan. So it's there. It's been a fun project. Sometimes it's been a comedy of errors, but a lot of times it's been a lot of laughing on my part, and a lot of it's been because of all the errors. But I don't think he'll have any. And I'll stand behind it or in front of it. Either way, we're good to go. All right, I'm getting ready to fire it up and take it up and down my road a little bit just to see how it shakes out, and everything works good, then it'll be back. The hood will go on, I'll finish fine-tuning everything, and then I'll be calling the customer. So just quickly, this is done. Everything's done now. The brake hoses to the master cylinder reservoirs are done. Put the plate over the foot box. Everything's tucked up. Oil's checked, topped off. Water's checked off, topped off, and it's ready to go. Well, as you can see, it's running. You may not be able to hear me, but I did a shakedown cruise. Had to come back and adjust the IAC and idle speed. Got it down to where it's supposed to be. I think we're running at 5. Actually, we've got 1 to 3 on the IAC. I got my laptop hooked up here so I can kind of monitor. So I was adjusting the fuel table and looking at my base fuel. So we're running kind of fat, actually real fat at idle right now. So I'll work with that, but I'm going to do that in open loop. It's idling really nice. We're idling about 850, something like that. So right now I'm pretty happy. It runs good. I'm going to take it on a good run, do another data log, come back, maybe have to do some adjustment, find out what I have to do, and then ship her off back to the customer. Good. All right, this will be my final shakedown cruise, just to make sure everything's operating as it should, as it has been in the past few days. Customers are going to be coming picking up in a few days, so just doing one final check. Do a walk around here again real quick. I do have my laptop hooked up, so I'll be monitoring what I can during the drive. I also have the LCD screen just kind of on a suction cup on the dash for right now. Owner's going to decide where he wants to put it. And again, just going over everything. Interior is clean. I adjusted both doors. Fuel system intact. Brake master cylinder hoses covered again as usual. Fan shroud back on and the cover, radiator cover back on. So it's polished up and cleaned up as best I could get it. So I'm going to take it out on a run and we'll see what it does, and I'll be back. Alright, I'm just getting ready to go out on a run. Notice my IAC is now starting to come down. RPM is right below 800. Good battery voltage.
So I've also got my laptop hooked up, so we're going to be monitoring here. And we'll see what happens. Okay, right now the alert table is starting to populate as I drive along here, so we'll be building this as we go during the day. Alright, the fuel table is being populated. We did a pretty good run, did some cruising and some highway and some acceleration. I did some data logging, so we'll see what happens. And I'm just cruising back to my house right now, so just watching everything what's going on, traffic and new car, well, somebody else's car. Okay, I'm going to do a little data log run here and we'll see what happens.